Welcome to the Voices of Florida House District 14, Love Thy Neighborhood, the podcast where your story matters. I'm Teresa V. Wakefield Gamble, a lifelong Jacksonville resident, educator, advocate, entrepreneur, and your 2026 candidate for Florida House District 14. This podcast is more than just conversations. It is a movement. From kitchen tables to corner stores, from neighborhood meetings to City Hall, and all the way to the Florida State Capitol. We're bringing together voices from every block, every precinct, every walk of life. From Sherwood Forest and Moncrief to Norwood and Brentwood, Lake Forest and Grand Park, Cedar Hills and Hyde Park, Arlington and Fort Caroline, Southside Estates, Ocean Way and Turtle Creek, Oakleaf, Normandy, and Crystal Springs. Your stories lead the way. And of course, we shine light on our historic districts: Springfield, Eastside, Durkeeville, San Marco, downtown near the stadium, and Merle Avenue. Communities rich with culture, struggle, and legacy. Whether you're a business owner, a teacher, a student, a faith leader, a frontline worker, or a grandma with decades of wisdom, this is your mic, your moment, and your neighborhood. So get comfortable, get inspired, and most importantly, get involved. Let's build Florida House District 14 together. Mason Shoemaker is a junior at the University of North Florida, majoring in political science. He currently serves as the president of the University of North Florida College Democrats. In addition, he has worked on multiple campaigns, including Donna Deegan's successful 2023 mayoral campaign as the Gen Z director. Mason also serves as a Precinct Committeeman in the Duval County Democratic Executive Committee and serves on the Florida Democratic Party State Executive Committee. With a plethora of experience in politics and political campaigns, Mason is well versed in political issues and passionate about serving the people. Mason's main priority in 2025 and beyond is to get young people engaged in politics, even in off years. Mason has formulated relationships with dozens of other young leaders across the state of Florida and has worked with them to create a Democratic Party that serves the needs of young people. Greetings and welcome, everyone. This is your host, Teresa V. Wakefield Gamble, your 2026 candidate for Florida House District 14. We are here today on Voices of Florida House District 14 podcast with my amazing next gen rising guest, Mason Shoemaker, from the president of UNF Democrats. But also, he got some new news to drop today. I'm going to let Mason tell y'all about that when we get to that point. Welcome to the podcast, Mason.
Thank you so much for having me, Therese. How are you?
I am doing amazing, amazing, amazing. So I was reading your bio and we ran into each other when I first ran for my office last year in 2024 at Angie Nixon community event.
Yes.
And I loved your energy. I love all the things that you're doing in the community, but I did not know you worked on the mayoral campaign for our first mayor.
I did.
That is
yes,
cool. But before we just dive into your political journey, let's talk about Mason. Who is Mason Shoemaker?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Yes.
It's great to be on here and to get my message out there for young people, not only for myself but also for other young people that I fight for. I'm born and raised in Jacksonville. Jacksonville native. I'm Jacksonville to the core. I grew up in I guess you could say, semi-political family. Neither of my parents ever really got involved in politics. However, they always educated me and they always made sure that I was aware of what was going on. I remember distinctly 2008. I wasn't old enough yet, but my parents went to an Obama rally when he came to Jacksonville back in 2008. And my first election that I really paid attention to was 2016. I was still pretty young. I think I would have been around 11 or 12. It was the Clinton-Trump race, and I was all in for Clinton. I was supporting Hillary, doing all, not really much that I could do, but, just following it and whatnot. And so that election result really is what got me, motivated and the passion that started of politics for me, because that was a shock result. And I remember crying on election night, just as I did a few months ago in November.
Of course. It
Um,
always be that one election that get us kicked into
yes.
gear. Yes.
Yes,
Go
and
ahead.
that was when it really started. And when my first real campaign that I did some things on was Donna Deegan's 2020 congressional campaign when she ran for congressional. It was at the time it was congressional district 4, but now it would be congressional district 5. Um, but the district, the that was really the first. I mean, it was during COVID, so it was, but I was still doing lit drops, phone banking and whatnot. And of course, Donna did not win that race. However, the next really big campaign that I got involved in was Donna Deegan's mayoral campaign, and I'm sure I don't know if you want to talk about that. We'll talk about that
Of
later.
course. Of course.
But
You can talk about it
yeah.
now.
Okay. Well, Donna, we'll get more into it later, I'm sure. But Donna's campaign in the mayoral campaign was probably still to this day the best campaign I've ever worked on. I had so much fun, worked really hard, but it was such a fun campaign. We had great people. Campaign manager Pat McCullough, love her still, and of course, Miss Mayor Donna Deegan, who the first female mayor of Jacksonville,
Yes.
first Democrat since Alvin Brown, and before that it would have been like 30 years or something like that, I think.
Yes.
That was a real when we won that. Now that was something. That was my first real taste of victory, of just what a movement like that can do,
That's
and
good.
how and she won a substantial victory over
Yes.
Daniel Davis. And
Yes.
it was a substantial victory, and I think that in 2027 she's going to get reelected. But we have
I
we have
love
we
that.
have to
I love
we have
that.
to we have to focus on 2026 first to get to
Yeah.
2027. But anyway,
Exactly.
but anyway, and then 2024, of course, that was when I had started college at this point, and I ran for president before the UNF College Democrats, and I won. So I've been president for about a year, and we did a lot of stuff with the Harris campaign. We had Harris campaign come on campus. I actually got the chance to meet Kamala Harris when she came to Jacksonville.
Wow.
And I also, while doing stuff for Harris, I got the chance to meet Hillary Clinton down in Tampa. So not only is it the hard work that makes it rewarding, it's the cool things that I get to do. And once you get involved, and it's not just grueling, hours on hours of work. I mean, it is, but it's also you get to do really cool things like that. You know,
That's
um,
cool.
so that's just a little bit about me. And of course, after the 2024 election, I really was fired up and angry to tell you, as I'm sure many of the listeners can understand as well. I'm sure they feel the same way. Um, so after that election, we all felt a little bit defeated, and we had to take a couple of days really just to process, but then get right back on our feet and roll up our sleeves. As the vice president said, you know, this is not a time to throw up our hands; it is a time to roll up our sleeves.
I
So
like
that's what
that.
I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. That's why I ran for Florida College Democrat president, and I just found out today that I've been elected with 67% of the vote. So I'm very excited
Wow.
about that and very excited to get started. And we are looking forward to advancing the Democratic Party's agenda on our campuses and ensure that students feel heard and they're registered to vote, and that we fight this administration. Everything.
You, Mason, I mean, I just love how your story started as a Gen Zer, and it makes me thought about when I was a teacher and how I got my sons involved in canvassing.
Yes.
So they can get community service hours towards the Florida Bright Future Scholarship. And matter of fact, my youngest son did it for President Obama when he ran for office the first time.
Hmm.
And from that career, he wound up going to college in Daytona and wound up working with a congressional candidate and the mayor in Daytona Beach, Florida, when he was going to HBCU. So
See, it starts
I
it starts young. You start them young.
yes, yes. So my question for you, with everything that's going on with the disappointment of the 2024 election, and I know a lot of young people was really galvanized when Kamala Harris got in the race, even though she got in the race late. What was the young people saying when you was working on the campaign, on the Harris Walls campaign? What were y'all hearing
Yeah.
from them?
Well, I this was part of, I think, the reason why I was so shocked that we lost. I was hearing nothing but pretty much pure excitement from young
Okay.
people. about Vice President Harris. Um, I think she galvanized a lot of energy that just wasn't there before. I think we saw um, so many students who kind of felt apathetic about politics
Hmm.
when Biden was on the ticket. And no disrespect to President Biden, I think he's a fantastic leader.
Yes.
But I think a lot of young people were looking for some younger blood in some more energy on the campaign, and I think that's what we got with Vice President Harris. Um, but I mean, of course, we came across some people who had different beliefs and more conservative over Trump anyway. But a lot of students were feeling very apathetic about politics and like, you know what, I don't really feel anything about it. And although there were most of our, I guess those of us in our echo chamber were saying, oh, we're so excited, we're so this and
Hmm.
that, but there were still a lot of people, especially young people on campus that I talked to, that were feeling really apathetic about things and just saying, I don't even know if I'm going to vote. I don't even know if I'm registered to vote. I'm like, how do you not know if you're registered to vote? So, and we had to do a lot of that. And of course, um, we had People Power Florida and Escalante group come on campus and do some voter registration. But of course, it wasn't enough to flip Duval County.
Right.
Not that it would have changed the result of the national election, obviously, but it was still disappointing for sure. But I
Right.
think that the point is, a lot of students are feeling apathetic, and I think especially now they're feeling really defeated now with all the news that's coming out of this White House is just negative, 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 and they're ripping away students. I know a lot of students who were going to have internships with the federal government that were revoked
Oh,
because of this
wow.
administration, because of the hiring freeze. As a matter of fact, I applied for a State Department internship, and I'm pretty sure I would have gotten it had this administration not been installed and um,
Wow.
instituted a hiring freeze. So, not to mention, not only you hear on the news about all of these people getting fired from the federal government, it's not just advanced, career civil servants. It's interns, it's young people too.
Wow. So, that is really hard to hear. I guess from because my heart really go out to the young people and the college students. And I hate to hear that because I always have been one to try to, find resources and things to help position you all, for to be the next generation of leaders because I believe in the energy, ingenuity, and the things that you all want to bring to the table.
Right.
So, and I understand now with all the things that's going on with the colleges, with the especially in Florida, the Stop Woke Act, the Parental Rights Act with the book banning, and then the Don't Say Gay bill. I know how are you having to circumvent that space, even in your role as the UNF Democratic president, and now finna be the Florida Democratic college president. How are y'all gonna navigate that space to really get the young people back engaged with this with politics? Because they're gonna have to.
Yeah, I think a lot of it just comes down to just education. A lot of students are not familiar with the state legislative process. I know that we have Rachel Gray has been working with some UNF students on that, and they've actually gone to Tallahassee, which
That's
I think is
good.
great. But there's still not a lot of education. A lot of people don't even know what's going on in Tallahassee.
Wow.
And I think, and I don't have to tell you that Governor DeSantis and the legislature are ripping education in Florida to shreds. Okay,
Yes.
especially in these at UNF, they're attacking UNF. Just the other day or the other week, when I made the mention at the DEC meeting of uh, the deal that UNF struck with ICE to
Right.
allow campus police to do immigration enforcement and that the university was strong-handed into signing on that deal because otherwise it would have lost funding, critical funding. Um, so I think in terms of the students, really we have to do a lot of education and just say, hey, this is what's going on. You need to follow this. So, and like we were talking about earlier, we see so much apathy they just don't know what's going on, and it's affecting them. It's affecting them. I mean,
Mhm.
you pay tuition to go here. You pay
Yes.
to come here and learn, and 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 you're not even aware of that there is a full-on assault on our public education system here in the state, in Tallahassee. And we
Wow.
have representatives in Tallahassee who are just going all in for this, and they are hearing from students, and they just do not care. And Republicans and a couple Democrats,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, so-called Democrats.
There you
Um,
go.
so
Dinos.
dinos, absolutely.
Yeah, Democrat in name only.
Democrat in
Exactly.
name only. So yeah, I think really it just boils down to education and getting people really involved in the process by letting them know that, hey, this affects you. This isn't just
Right.
something that you're reading in the news and that you'll see on the headline. Uh, one way or another, it's going to affect you, and and it's important to pay attention.
That is so true. And I'm glad you said that about they have to pay attention what they tuition pays, they salaries at those colleges, they tuition, not just that, they cost of living, like with the tack on the Department of Education with student loans. What are your peers are saying about that? Because I know many of you probably getting student loans to finish your degrees, right?
Absolutely. I am very fortunate to be in a position where I do not have to take out student loans. However, I know a lot of my peers who are relying on those student loans, and a lot of my peers, there are a couple of my peers I know that get Pell Grants and things like that, and those are
Mm-hmm.
under attack right now, and they're very scared. And a lot of them, the ones that know what's going on, and a lot of them who do take out student loans, and of course, I'm a political science major, so a lot of my peers do know what's going on within my major. And the ones that I've talked to are very worried. They're very worried
Mm.
about how they're going to pay for school because for most Americans can't afford to throw, uh, thousands and thousands of dollars for education every semester.
Right.
That's just not plausible for most Americans. So, people have to take out student loans and scholarships. A lot of my peers are going to school on scholarships, and they're worried about scholarships through, if they're through the government or whatever. Private scholarships probably won't be at risk, but the ones that are publicly funded, especially like I said, Pell Grants and whatnot.
Right.
So yeah, we're very worried. I know a lot of people who are very worried.
Oh, wow. And so it's good to know to let me know that there is some conversation and some concerns because education is one of my key issues, that I'm running on, being a former educator and a current graduate student myself. So I'm feeling the heat
Right.
as
And let me
well with
just
the
say,
student loans.
UNF, although not in House District 14, we
Yes.
we still are affected by decisions that people in other districts make. Okay?
Right.
Like we could have somebody in a district down in Miami or a district over in Pensacola write a bill that would affect every single student in Florida, regardless of what district you live in. So let me make that clear to students who
I'm
may be
glad
listening
you
and to
said that, Mason.
listeners. So
Yes.
and I don't live in your district, but I understand the importance of getting people in Tallahassee who are going to fight for the people, are going to fight for the
Yes.
people, and we don't have that right now in District 14.
No, we
So
don't.
we need to get you elected.
I appreciate that, Mason. I appreciate that.
You have
Most
my
definitely.
if it hasn't been made clear already, my full and complete endorsement in this race. Therese Gamble gets the Florida College Democrats endorsement. Um,
Oh, thank
well, I
you.
can't actually. Let me not say that I'm not president yet. But by the time this comes out, by the time this episode comes out, I will have been sworn in. So
I
there you go.
appreciate the love. I appreciate the love. Thank
Of
you for that,
course, we need
Mason.
you. We need you.
Yes, of course. I am all for college students and making sure y'all future is secure. I have grandchildren that's coming up. I'm even concerned with this new bill they passed with students working at 14 to 11
Yeah.
o'clock at
Yes.
night. I
Yes.
mean,
And
it's
I think State Rep Andrew Nixon was just talking about that. She gave a
yes.
good speech on the House floor, I believe, about that not too long ago. I would encourage listeners to go take a look at her social media page. She does a very good job at making sure that everything is public. And
That's good. Now, let me ask you this, Mason. Are y'all having watch parties with the college students on the Florida channel or C-SPAN so they can know what's going on in these
we have
sessions?
not to my knowledge. No, we have not.
Okay.
But I know of the
Hmm.
Florida. what you're talking about, but we
Florida
have
Channel. Hmm.
Florida Channel. Yes.
That may be a suggestion you all may, to kind of help with the education piece that you were talking about. Because in my messaging, that's some of the things that I'm gonna actually pull, because sometimes voters need to hear from their representatives' mouths of
Right.
what they're saying and what they're proposing on the floor, what they're supporting on the floor, and their tax dollars are at play.
Right.
So, with that being said, we on an off year election. How is it important now that the next generation of leaders needs to get involved now instead of waiting till 2026 or 2027?
Absolutely. I think it's incredibly important because a lot of students, when they do go and pay attention and get into politics, they only pay attention to the federal level. Even midterms, they don't really even pay attention to. It's just the presidential. But I think people need to know, although I think this administration is a rare case, but most times what's going to affect you the most are going to be local politics and state
Right.
level politics rather than federal. However, like I said, this administration is the case because everybody's getting affected by this administration. However, that doesn't negate the importance of state and local politics. Okay, so we have we just recently had two congressional special elections,
Right.
millions of dollars raised. They were Republican districts, and we were never going to win those. Okay, but they tightened up significantly compared to
Wow.
2024 just months ago. So
Wow.
paying attention in off-cycle elections like that is very, very important because it sets the tone for the
Yes.
general election in 2026 and 2028. Okay, so and for example, I'll give you an example, not Florida, but in Virginia, there's a Virginia and New Jersey, there are gubernatorial elections going on. Those are going to be very, very good indicators of what is going to happen in 2026. So it is imperative that we pay attention to off-year elections, not just in Virginia and New Jersey. I'm not aware of any off-year elections coming up in Florida in 2025, but to the top of my head, I'm sure there are some, at least local. Um, but it's incredibly important because they set the tone for general elections.
That's good. That's good to know. So I understand. I know that you play a significant role in a lot of different political spaces with the local DEC, with the Young Dems at UNF, now at the state level. So, what is the future of the Democratic Party through your eyes as a Gen Z? What would be your priorities that you would share to Chair Nikki Fried?
Well, it's funny you say that. I just got a text from Nikki today, um, congratulating me on my victory, and I didn't get a chance to talk to her very long, but I think that it's really important that we put a focus on young people, particularly like you were saying, one of your campaign issues, education,
Hmm.
because we have so many college students who are very scared right now, as I mentioned, um,
Yes.
and we need young leaders as well. We
Hmm.
can't continue with the same old process.
Right.
The
Right.
same leaders and no, and like I said, no disrespect to any leader that's been in office for a long time. I understand it takes a lot of them have served lifetimes, and we owe them a debt of gratitude. But it's time for new leadership. It really is. So what I would say is prop up young leaders.
Right.
Give them public positions, and well, don't give them, but give them a chance to earn, and run for public positions. Like a DNC membership, a state
Right.
committee.
Hmm.
I believe I'm one of the youngest members in the state committee. I'm the youngest one from Duval
Yes.
County.
Hmm.
Um, I'm also the youngest member of the DEC in Duval County.
Right.
So little things like that eventually are going to add up. And as those leaders climb the ranks, we're going to have younger people in higher positions.
Hmm.
And I think it's really going to be a good thing. I really do. So I think it's important that our leaders now start investing in our young leaders.
I agree. I totally agree. Now, how are connected are you, UNF College Dems with the high school Democrat clubs? Do we have any high school Democrat clubs in
There
Jacksonville?
I
That
don't
you?
know, not to my knowledge, Jacksonville, but there is a Florida high school Democrats, and I believe Um, to my knowledge, Alexis Dorman's sister was running that. I feel really bad because I forgot her name, but she's very
Mm-hmm.
nice. But I think she's on her way to college now, so I don't know. But I don't know how active they are. But absolutely, if we could get them to be active and encourage them to have chapters in Jacksonville and all across the state, absolutely, we're all for it.
That sounds good. And I think that will really benefit and help uplift the message that you're trying to send and bring some reassurances.
Absolutely.
So now for first time voters,
Mhm.
for Gen Z's first time voters, what strategies to make it more accessible to them? Are y'all encouraging college students to do vote by mail or in person or
Well, UNF used to have a polling place on campus, used to
right?
have an early voting location. That is no longer the case, and I don't think that there's any plans to bring that back. I think there was somebody brought a case to the elections, Duval County Office of Elections, and that was denied, and they said, yeah, no, we're but I remember I went when my parents voted in 2018. I went with them and they voted at UNF. I think it's really unfortunate that we don't have a polling location at UNF because that would just make things so much easier for a lot of students, particularly students who don't have access to transportation. They don't have cars or anything like that. And Jacksonville is a very car dependent city. So, have not having a polling location really hinders a lot of that. Um, I think it's incredibly important that not only the Democratic Party, now you have to re-register for vote by mail, everybody. And I think
Yes.
it's important that we especially push that on college campuses and let them know, say, hey, and if you were registered to do vote by mail, and if you voted by mail in 2024, you have to do it again. You have to
Right.
register to do that again. And that's the case with everybody. But I think especially on college campuses, it's incredibly important to do that and encourage vote by mail because a lot of students they may live out of state or in the different parts of Florida. They can't go home to go vote. So it's incredibly important that they request their ballot in time and that they make sure that they're registered because you have to be registered. I believe it's 30 days before an election. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Um, so in Florida, which we should have same day voter registration. But anyway, um,
I agree.
uh,
I totally
uh,
agree.
but it's yeah, absolutely. I would encourage students left and right to register to vote by mail. That doesn't mean you have to register to vote by mail. If you register to vote by mail and you get a ballot, it doesn't mean you have. You can still go in and vote in person if you want,
Right.
or but you can also you have that option. So I think it's incredibly important that we do that absolutely, and
I
make sure that
love the I think the vote by mail option would be great for college students while they have time to research these candidates,
Mhm.
research the issues that's on the ballot, like amendments and changes to the Constitution and stuff, so they can educate themselves. And that is one of the pieces that I'm really will begin bringing to the table as this podcast roll out. I'm gonna be doing a lot of commentary before each of these episodes educating the voters in District 14 and everyone that listens of things that impact them at the state level, impacts them at the local level. Now, my particular district, the primary election, which is August 18, 2026, is the general election for my
Yes,
race.
yes, it is.
And a lot of times, whoever wins the primary, that's the person who had that done secured the general. And a lot of people was messed up with the redistricting.
Well,
How
you're
has
basically
that
running against a Republican.
exactly? Totally. She just a dino, a Democrat in name only, which for our listeners and viewers, that means a person that has been in a party but do not share or align with the values of the Democratic Party, which the Democratic Party is for people first and making sure tax dollars are invested where they need to go back into the community, not getting funding from private corporations and doing their bidding and supporting legislation that benefits them and not the people who
Exactly.
voted for her to be in that seat. So that's why I am running to retire her, because we done
Yes.
had enough of that.
And let me
And
just say something about that too.
uh-huh.
I did a little peeking on her Facebook page, and she has a very large social media presence.
Of course.
Um, I went through the comments, looked through some of the people. 95% of them are not from Jacksonville.
Of correct.
So
Correct.
what she's doing all this for the people of where? Not Jacksonville.
Exactly. That is the point. That is the whole point. And I figured that out in the last race with her donations, which you can see them publicly on the Division of Elections. They all came from corporations
Hmm.
versus mine came from individual donors. They may
Right.
not have been in Jacksonville. I got some in Jacksonville, a lot in Florida, and a lot outside of Florida because of what she has not done. And that's why I really don't, I look at the person's voting record, and especially this last session, it was she abstained from a lot of issues that really
Yep.
benefited the people. So, Mason, with that being said, what advice would you give young people who thinking about getting involved with campaigns or doing any type of advocacy work?
Just do it. I would, that's what I would say. Let me tell you, how I got so involved and so, uh, made all these connections is just showing face, going to events. And you may not be comfortable, and I understand it may not be comfortable going to an event. Maybe you don't know anybody, but I can tell you that in the Duval County Democratic Party, you will always have a friend there, even if you don't know
Yes,
anybody. You will
yes,
always make friends there, and you will have people. It's not going to be you're not going to be ridiculed because you don't have campaign experience. As a matter of fact, they love that. They love people to come in, and they love to train people, and they will train you on the spot, and you'll be paired up with somebody who's more experienced. They're never going to send you out alone. um when you go canvassing and whatnot, or when you do phone banking, they'll never send you out alone. They'll have somebody help you, um until you get more experience, and then maybe if you want to help somebody else learn how to do it. That's what I've done. I remember when I first did canvassing, and I had people come with me, and I still was learning how to do it, particularly on the Donna Deegan campaign. um so really, it's just in the doing. It's just doing it. It's just and I will say to college students who may be hesitant about doing it, it has been, I think, the most fulfilling thing I've ever done working on campaigns.
wow.
Really, it has been, and I really enjoyed it. And I would encourage just to get past that hump, and then once you're over the hump, you're home free. You're gonna love it.
That's great. That is great to know. Now tell me about, let's talk about Mayor Donna Deegan's campaign. And I understand you was the Gen Z director.
That's right.
What was that role involved in? It's so any other upcoming college students who may want to operate or pursue or strive to that role.
Yeah.
What is a day of a Gen Z director is?
Well, absolutely. So I was responsible for the campaign outreach for Gen Z voters. So I was responsible for ensuring that Gen Z people actually knew who Donna Deegan was, because a lot of younger people, Donna Deegan was not on the air. I think she left the news station around 2012. So a lot of people my age didn't really ever get a chance to see her on television or remember her. So a lot of them didn't even know there was an election going on. So I was responsible for ensuring that young people, because at the time I was in high school, I just turned 18, I was about to graduate high school, and it was my first time voting. So I was also responsible for letting my peers know about everything, and going to events and making sure that my peers knew about events, and going on my personal social media page and sharing events. And when Gen Zers would show up to events, I would, direct them and introduce them to people and let them know, like, hey, this is how we do things. This is what our campaign is about. Like, we're gonna have a good time, and it was a good time. We had a lot of Gen Z people get involved. I knew a lot of young people who were on that campaign, and it was wonderful. Um,
Wow.
it was a good time for sure, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think that anybody wanting to pursue something like that should absolutely do it. Um, Ask around. There are going to be a plethora of campaigns, especially coming up in 2026, that are going to be
Yes.
looking for young people to help out. It may not
Yes.
always be paid. It may not be, a lot of hours per week, and a lot of campaigns can't afford to do that. However, volunteering is the most rewarding thing you can do. It's you're giving your time and your energy for something that you care about,
That's
and
good.
it's not about getting something what you get in return is the gratification of knowing that you're fighting to make a difference.
I love that. I'm glad you mentioned the candidates who need help and the volunteering piece, because a lot of young people, I know it's hard and they're struggling trying to make ends meet,
Mhm.
but it's the accessibility that they get that a
Right.
normal person normally wouldn't get, because you are true. Some candidates are looking for young people, such as I am, because I use a lot of digital tech in my campaign for that reason, so I can reach them. So, Mason, at the end of the day, I know you're building bridges, not just in Jacksonville, all the way up to probably the federal level. What path, with the climate that we're in right now with this current administration, we know the path of building bridges is necessary, but what will be the first step, of what will be the first thing you will tell the Gen Zers, this next generation, who don't see no hope, or no future for them, to not to give up? What would you tell them?
Well, let's remember that there were still over 75 million people that voted for Kamala Harris. Okay.
Yes.
And a lot of them are in Duval County. And
Yes.
um, there are good people out there. There are
Yeah.
still good people out there. Media tries to spin it and, and make things look bad, and truthfully, they are bad. But there are still good people out there. I'm not implying that people who have different political beliefs than me are not good people. I'm just saying there are people with, let me just rephrase that. I'll say there are people with, the same values as you. They are here, and we are here, and we're going to welcome you. Absolutely. We'll welcome you any day of the week. So that's what I would say. I think, and it starts on a local level, like you said, and you were talking about the federal level and all that, and that's very important too. But it starts at the local level, and you work your
Yes.
way up, and that is how change is made.
I totally agree. I agree, because I've ran into some independents, some some libertarians, and even some Republicans. They're feeling the impact, the lack of not having access to health care, the increase of groceries, the increase of gas, mortgage rates going through the roof, can't pay the rent, can't, have to choose. So that's where I would advise all you, as a future up and coming Florida Democrat college collegiate leader, is to find the common issues that impact everybody. Don't Party is not the issue. It's just getting the right people in office that's going to do the right thing, by putting people, in the words of Rachel, putting people over politics, and in my words, people over profits.
Right.
So Mason, before we go, is any last minute messages that you want to share and leave and inspire, or invite some of your Gen Z counterparts to come join you? Let them know how they can connect with you, and join the movement with you.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I would say do not despair. As much as the news headlines may discourage you, and trust me, it gets at me too. I get very, very frustrated and very, very angry. However, it is so important to never, ever give up, and to keep fighting for what is right, because our Constitution and our democracy depend on it.
Yes.
And your education depends on it.
Yes.
It's incredibly important that you stay involved. Incredibly important. Okay, we need young leaders, and I would encourage any college student who might be listening who's in Florida, if you are interested in joining the Florida College Democrats, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Um, you can email me, masonshoemaker18 at gmail.com, and I will be more than happy to get back to you and about finding a chapter at your school. And if your chapter doesn't have a school, then see if maybe you'd be interested in starting one. So we're always looking to expand. So that's what I would say. I think it's incredibly important that people continue to get involved, and to any maybe non-college students, who maybe those of you who have already been through school. If you're looking to support the Florida College Democrats, we're always welcoming donations and and just support. So anybody, please do not hesitate to reach out to me, especially young people.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Mason, for joining us today and giving us the insight. Congratulations on your new leadership roles.
Thank you so much.
As always, I always enjoy seeing you in the community, in the grassroots, and I know I won't see the last of you.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We'll see you in Tallahassee in 2026.
I know that's right. Thank you, Mason.
Of course. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Voices of Florida House District 14, Love Thy Neighborhood. If you felt seen, heard, or inspired, share this episode, subscribe to our podcast, and spread the word across our district and beyond. From Durkeeville to Dunn Avenue, from East Side to Edgewood, from Springfield to San Marco, and across every street near the stadium downtown. We are building power, one voice at a time. Don't forget to sign the petition to get me on the 2026 ballot and donate $26 today to keep this campaign for the people, powered by the people. Schedule your story session, stay connected on social media, and join our volunteer team, digitally or in person, because change starts with us, right here, right now, right on your block. Until next time, love your neighbor, lift your voice, and let's fight for the future we all deserve. Paid for by Teresa V. Wakefield Gamble, Democrat for District 14. Produced by CRPC Now Media. Powered by Concierge Resource Professional Consultants, LLC.